Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, my name is Tori and today I'm going to share with you all the books I read in March plus one recent DNF. So for the books, All You Need Is Kill, Mickey 7, and Upgrade. I'm not going to spend too much time on them in this video, but the first two are in a recent reads video that I did at the beginning of the month, and then Upgrade is one that I have a full review for that went up a couple weeks ago. But overall, it was a decent reading month. I'm hoping April will be a lot better, but let's get into the video. So first I want to talk about Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. This is a sci-fi novel, 2022 release, and we're following this character Mickey who becomes an expendable for this expedition. Essentially when he dies on these missions that he's on, he is then replaced by another Mickey. And so at the start of the book, he has died 6 times, so our main character is Mickey 7, and at the beginning of the book, he's on this mission when he is presumed dead. But his base unknowingly creates Mickey 8, and we have Mickey 7 and 8 who can't be alive at the same time. So that just creates a lot of problems and we go from there. So I thought this book was fine overall. Didn't blow me away, didn't do anything spectacular for me. But actually the more that time passes, the less I like it. So next I read All You Need Is Kill by Hiroshi Sakurazaka, and this is in the same video as Mickey 7. And this is another one that the more time goes on, the more I'm just like, yeah, I didn't really enjoy that. So the premise of it is it's so good and it's really action-packed, especially in the beginning. We're following this character who is a soldier in this war against this alien race known called Mimics, and the Mimics have just invaded different parts of Earth. And so our main character gets in a battle with these Mimics, and in his battle he actually dies. And when he dies, he wakes up a day before the battle actually begins, and he keeps reliving the same day over and over again, and he keeps experiencing death over and over again. And so the book really goes from there. He's stuck in this time loop and trying to figure out what is going on, but then he meets our main female character, and she is also experiencing some weird things with this time loop, and the two of them essentially have to figure out how to help each other and what's going on. As we started getting into some of the other parts in the story, it's broken down into 4 parts. It just became a little bit dry. I did love the history of how the Mimics actually came to Earth and just everything behind that. And I did like the first part of the story when we are just seeing our main character in battle and having to repeat the same day over and over again. So that was really intriguing, but overall just kind of fell flat for me. Found some parts to be dry and just didn't like a lot of the humor that was in it. Next, I finished Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This is one that I had mentioned at the beginning of the month that I was currently reading and really enjoying, and I finished it and I still really enjoyed it. I feel like this is going to be hit or miss for a lot of readers, but this really did work for me. I love the atmosphere of it. I loved how creepy it was, and even when we started getting into the later half of the book and certain things started coming out, it was a little bit much, but I was still on board with it. I was still here for it. This was just entertaining. It was a good read, a quick suspenseful read, so I did enjoy that aspect of it. So we do have 2 timelines in the story. In one, in the past, we're following our main character and her crew, and they are off in deep space, and they stumble upon this luxury ship liner that went missing over 20 years ago. And it's been one of the biggest mysteries. Nobody knows what happened to these people, if they are all dead or alive or just what happened. So our main character and her crew, they actually find this liner and they step on board, and things just start getting so weird from there. But in our present day timeline, our main character has actually already escaped from this liner, and she is telling the story to these officials of what basically happened on, you know, when her crew stepped on board. I especially loved the first half of this because the main character, she has her own, you know, she has her own trauma that she is still suffering with from childhood, and it does impact the way that she remembers a lot of things and just the way that she reacts to different situations. So I guess she could be considered an unreliable narrator because she does have some gaps in her memory about what actually happened when her crew was on this liner. So she's telling her story. We keep flipping back and forth to them on the ship and then her in the present day. But as you get into the later half of the book, all of these secrets start coming out about the ship and the crew, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like there will come a point for most readers when the book hits that kind of climactic scene. So many people are going to be like, that is absolutely ridiculous. But even after that happened, I was still like, okay, I'm still here for it. I'm still on board. Like, it was just entertaining all the way through. So I love the reading experience of that. It was creepy. It was atmospheric. The marketing of this mentions that it's like Titanic meets The Shining. And that is actually, now that I finished the book, that is actually not accurate. There is only one 90s movie that this book reminds me of, and I can't even say what it is, but it is a creepy horror 90s film, extremely popular, and I can see why they wouldn't want that in the marketing for this book, because it does remind me a lot of that. I would say if you're curious about this, just give it a try. It's just go with it. It's entertaining, it's fun, it's creepy. Next, I finished Hunt the Stars by Jessie Mihalik, and this is the first book in a duology, a sci-fi romance duology, and I didn't love it. Didn't love it by the end of it. I was somewhat enjoying it at the beginning of the book, because we're just getting to know the crew members and just being on the ship with these characters. I enjoyed that aspect of it, but as the book started going on and that romance aspect of it started coming out a little bit more, I just didn't care. So in this book, our main character, Octavia, she's the captain of this crew, kind of a bare bones crew, and her people are approached at the beginning of the book by an enemy general and his crew because they need Octavia's help in finding an item that's been stolen. And really the whole first half of the book is that kind of like relationship building between these two crews, and it was fine. Some aspects of it were a little bit drier than others, but one of my biggest issues with this book that kind of took me out of the story in a lot of places was the prose and the dialogue. There are just so many moments in here where the dialogue feels like on the younger side of the spectrum. It's kind of cheesy. I don't know a better way to say that. It sounds kind of cheesy. They sound like they sound like young children almost in some scenes. It did really take me out of the story a few times. The other big thing that I didn't enjoy in this was this book does a lot of telling and not really showing, and in the long run that really prevented me from getting invested in this relationship that was building between this enemy general and our main character. He's supposed to be her enemy. His people have done some really horrific things, but we only really hear about these things. We only read Octavia thinking these and having these inner thoughts about the horrors that he's done. You don't really see that, and you don't really get the sense that this general is as bad or as dangerous, or even his people that are with him are as dangerous as Octavia is making them out to be. So I never bought it. I never really felt like this general was an enemy to Octavia and that their relationship would be in some ways forbidden or frowned upon, or whatever you want to call it. I think that comes a lot though with the showing and not with the telling and not really showing that happens throughout the book. And the other thing that I didn't enjoy, and this is just me being nitpicky at this point, but you know when you don't really enjoy something, you start finding everything wrong. I don't really know how to explain this, but Octavia will be like, she'll be thinking something and we're in her head. So she'll be thinking something and we get that all in prose, and then she'll go and like say it out loud. This happens a lot. So it's like information being repeated a lot throughout the book, or the characters will say something in dialogue and then it'll be repeated in prose. That happens a little bit too often for my liking. And after a while, I'm just thinking, pick one, just pick one. Pick to reveal something in prose or pick to reveal it in dialogue. Please stop doing both. I can't handle it. I mentioned that if I liked it by the end, I would be continuing with the series or the duology, and I will not be continuing. So this was not in March, but let's talk about one of my recent DNFs. I just want to squeeze this in here. This is my first DNF of 2022, and I really struggled with, you know, whether or not I should put this down, but I DNF'd The Shadow of the Gods by Gwynne. So this is a Norse inspired fantasy. It's the first in a trilogy. Book 2 is actually out this month, and it takes place in a world that, you know, its people are living in the aftermath of this huge battle that happened between the gods, and we're following 3 characters in their respective POVs. And this is why I was really struggling to put this book down, because I love one of the perspectives. Orca, she is amazing. Her character is amazing. Her journey was so exciting to read about. I love her perspective so much. Orca is the reason why I even made it as far as I did in this book. I put the book down at around like 50%. I would never have even gotten that far if Orca wasn't as prevalent in the book as she is. But the other 2 Elvar's chapters, I wasn't overly opposed to Elvar's chapters. I found enjoyment in what she was trying to do and just her interactions in this warrior group that she was in. I did like that. But Varg's chapters were becoming so uninteresting. It was honestly ruining the rest of my reading experience. Every time we would get back to Varg, I would just be like, I can't go on. So even though I loved Orca's chapters and she was carrying that book for me, like, I mean, it was so good. It was so good whenever we were with her. But Varg, I can't believe just one character though kind of washed away all of the enjoyment that I was getting from the rest of the book. I do think that's why a lot of epic fantasy, high fantasy, most of it tends to be really hit or miss for me. That is why I do not read a lot of the big fantasy series, because I know a lot of them are multiple perspectives. There is no worse feeling for me than turning a page and seeing a character's name at the top of the chapter and going, ugh, I can't get with that. Even if you have to push through that chapter to get back to somebody you really like, it does not appeal to me. But aside from that, the world, I mean, it's some great world building happening in this book. I love the atmosphere of it and just how cold a lot of the scenes felt, and just being inspired by Norse mythology I thought was really fascinating. So I loved all of those aspects of the book and the world, but it was really just one character that I couldn't go on. And then next, I finished the big one. I finished House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, which is book 2 in the Crescent City series. And I really enjoyed this. I liked just the reading experience overall, but the last like 75 pages, the last line of the book, I am so excited for what is on the horizon for this series. So compared to Crescent City 1, House of Earth and Blood, I loved House of Earth and Blood. It made my best books of 2020 that year. Really enjoyed that one. But compared to that, this one, House of Sky and Breath, feels a lot quieter. It feels a little more meandering in a lot of places. That is one of my big issues with this book, is that it is too long. There's no reason that it needs to be 800 pages. But I loved a lot of the relationships that developed in this book. Not talking about Bryce and Hunt, but I loved like Rune and Ethan and Bryce's relationship with the two of them, and then Rune and what he goes through in this book. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the story, especially because I felt in book 1 Rune was such a throwaway character. I wasn't really interested in him, but I feel like he really came into his own in this book, and I am just so excited to see more of him in future books. I also really loved Ethan in this book. He is not, just from where we left off in Crescent City, he is not someone, well, Crescent City 1, he's not someone that I thought would be a prominent character in book 2, but I really liked his chapters. I love just, he has some really funny moments that come out in this book. I really enjoyed him. So I mentioned in one of my videos talking about the first book that this world, there's no way around it. This world is very convoluted. There's a lot going on, but that's due to the fact that there are so many creatures in Crescent City. There's fairies, there's angels, there's demons and sprites and fae and just all kind of stuff. There's different houses that they all fit into, but the lore of the world and the history of Crescent City and these different beings, it starts to come out a lot more in this book than what we got in Crescent City 1. So I really enjoyed this overall, especially that last, I'm telling you, that last maybe 75 to 100 pages to the end was just, book 3, I don't even know. I don't know how things are going to come together in book 3, but I am really looking forward to it. My least favorite part of the book is Hunt. I feel like in book 1 with Hunt, you didn't really realize how dry and like how boring he was, because there was so much. Book 1 was just new. There was so much happening in book 1. We were still dealing with the mystery of all of these killings happening throughout the city. So we had other things in book 1, a lot of world building in book 1 to take our attention off of Hunt. But I mean, now that the dust has settled and they're, you know, Bryce and Hunt are trying to figure out like what their relationship means and all this kind of stuff. Now that the dust has settled, we have like a full view of Hunt, and it's not exciting. He is so boring. There's nothing to distract you now from that fact that he's probably my least favorite Sarah J. Maas like male character. Even Therian, I don't even like Therian like that, and I would take him over Hunt. That's not good. But now that I think about it and all of the mess that happened at the end of the book, I feel like we all forget about what actually happened to Hunt at the end of the book. So hopefully things start coming together in book 3. But overall, I did really enjoy this. Nowhere near as strong in my opinion as House of Earth and Blood. Definitely feels like a book 2 in a series. I am really looking forward to seeing where the future of this series goes, because again, that ending was a lot. And then finally, I read Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This is his upcoming novel that comes out in July. I do have a full review of this already up on the channel if you want to go check that out. But I did really enjoy this overall. I think if you have read previous Blake Crouch novels like Dark Matter, or I haven't read Recursion, but even Recursion maybe, and then like some of his short stories, this feels like a Blake Crouch novel. I think Blake Crouch fans will enjoy this. It feels like a more quiet Blake Crouch novel. There's a lot of, I think, great ideas about just humanity and human nature and basically where we go from here. So I do really enjoy this. I highly recommend it when it comes out this summer. But if you do want to hear my full thoughts about it, I will link you to my spoiler-free review. So that is it for me, you guys. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Let me know down in the comments how your reading month went and what you're looking forward to reading in April. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.